evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. The true cost of the Southern Rail strikes and how one family fears it could affect their son's hopes of a transplant.
A social club in Fawley goes bust days before Christmas with debts of £160,000.
Dementia and what it means for those who live with it, behind the scenes for a special Emmerdale episode.
And the changing face of Christmas shopping, how big stores are fighting back against the internet. Good evening. The financial and personal cost of the Southern Rail dispute became clearer today, with each walkout costing the economy around £11 million.
Well, today there was another strike by rail conductors following 3 days of action last week involving drivers. Putting it into numbers, this is the 27th strike this year. That's close to a month of walkouts.
And the dispute will carry on into 2017. There are plans for a 3-day walkout from New Year's Eve.
And there's due to be a 6-day strike from the 9th of January.
But for some, it's not just a financial price. 13-year-old Jacob Goodison has kidney failure and needs specialist treatment in London. And his parents don't drive. They've been spending hundreds of pounds on taxis.
Well, his family are terrified if a kidney does become available for transplant, they won't be able to get to the hospital in time. Malcolm Shaw has our report.
Jacob Goodison has been waiting for a kidney transplant for 18 months. Every day he has to undergo 9 hours of dialysis at home in Eastbourne, plus frequent trips to a London hospital. His mum, Jenny, says the rail dispute has added yet more pressure and expense on the family, and she's terrified that Jacob could miss out on a life-changing operation if a donor becomes available on a strike day.
There's a small window of time that they have from getting the kidney and getting it into Jacob. And if there's no trains, I can't get there. So potentially we could lose a kidney from it. Because they ask us an estimated time of arrival, and if I'm saying I can't get up because there's no trains, we're going to be a few extra hours, they're inevitably going to pass the kidney on to somebody else.
Why is it so important to you to have this transplant?
Because I'll be able to go back to football and swimming and stuff, because I've always loved sports, and just have my life back.
Others, like Aidan Skinner from Littlehampton, also feel the rail dispute has left their lives on hold. Aidan recently had to take a crowded bus when the trains stopped running to get to a job interview and a hospital appointment, but the journey was so slow he missed both.
It is absolutely horrific. Southern need to basically sort this mess quickly, as it is absolutely wrecking everyone's lives, and it's just not fair.
The RMT union says a Christmas truce is in the hands of the government. The government says the union has refused to negotiate. A breakthrough can't come a day too soon for Jacob Goodison. If a kidney transplant becomes available for him, getting a train to London urgently could literally be a matter of life or death. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Eastbourne.
Well, the strikes are affecting thousands of people every day, of course, but the economic impact is also huge.
A study by the University of Chichester says the dispute has cost the country £300 million.
Well, earlier I spoke to the author of the report, Professor Dave Cooper. Professor Cooper, good to see you. An extraordinary figure this, £300 million. How on earth did you reach that figure?
Well, we looked at the average income per employee and looked at the number of commuters travelling. We worked out a productivity figure that would be lost as a result of people being late or not getting to work at all. And when you look at 200,000 people, the impact is significant.
So who's suffering then? Is it the small businesses or the larger corporations or the individuals or all of them?
Well, typically the larger corporations can absorb the lost productivity, but smaller businesses can't, and we've seen examples of smaller businesses going out of business. If we look, though, the real impact is on the individuals that work for those businesses, that suffer the delays day in, day out.
So briefly, your advice then to Southern Rail, the government and of course the unions.
I think all three of these organisations need to go back to the beginning. What are they trying to achieve and why? Strategically, this is silly. Everybody needs to compromise. They need to look at the future. The future's changing, and everybody needs to take account of that.
Let's hope they'll take heed of your advice. Professor Cooper, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
In other news, a lodger who killed his landlord in Sussex has been jailed for life. Alan Knight pleaded guilty to murdering David Bond at his house they shared in Worthing. He stabbed him 25 times with a kitchen knife. It followed an argument over a dirty microwave.
A woman's jaw's been broken during an unprovoked attack in Brighton. It happened in Little East Street at around 6 o'clock on Saturday morning. The 24-year-old victim says she was attacked by 3 or 4 men. She suffered 2 fractures to her jaw and had to have surgery to remove damaged teeth.
A man has suffered life-threatening injuries after being hit by a bus in Winchester. The accident happened near the corner of Upplebrook Street just before 5 o'clock last night. Members of the public helped lift the bus to free him. He's believed to be in his 40s.
Well, for more than 60 years, a social club in Hampshire has been serving the local community, but today its doors are locked.
Despite having more than 1,000 members, the Waterside Sports Club near Fawley ran up debts of more than £160,000 and it's now gone bust.
Well, it's left a charity pantomime without a venue, a football club without any facilities and an important social space empty just days, of course, before Christmas. Richard Slee has the story.
The Waterside Sports and Social Club closed without warning. Dozens of staff lost their jobs overnight, including supervisor Debbie Dixon.
We're all total shocked because none of us saw it coming. That's the awful thing all about it.
Concerns about the club's future were raised following a near wholesale change of board members at last month's AGM. The new team discovered debts of more than £160,000. Mike Vaughan was one of the board members who resigned.
I just think it was a lack of communication, a lack of organisation, and a lack of trying to bring the right people on board and maybe not involving the community enough.
Did you have any idea the debt was this big?
No, absolutely not.
Well, nobody from the new board of directors was available to speak to us today because they're currently in a meeting with insolvency practitioners. But we were given a statement that says plans to save the club had to be abandoned due to previously unknown financial liabilities, which are overwhelming. And to have continued under these circumstances would have meant we were breaking the law by trading whilst insolvent. It means not only the closure of the social club, but also the sports club, the sailing club and the theatre, which was about to show Cinderella. But instead, the society has discovered it's lost all its props and equipment and it needs a new home.
Unfortunately, with no money and no assets behind us, until we put on a production, we are unable to have money. So a lot of goodwill within the community is the only thing that's going to be able to help us rejuvenate the group.
But it might not be all bad news. The club has been told that the landlord, Esso, has promised it won't sell the site for development. So there are hopes that in time a new club could rise, phoenix-like, from the wreckage. Richard Slee, ITV News, Fawley.
Police say 2 robberies in Yateley where staff were threatened with a knife are linked. A man entered Cocoon Beauty in Reading Road on the 2nd of November and threatened staff with a knife. Later the same night, staff at the Coral Bookmakers were also threatened. Police want to speak to this man in connection with the robberies.
An elderly man's gone missing from his home in Bournemouth. Albert Alt, who's 84, was last seen at his home in Seafield Road on Friday evening. His mobile phone, glasses and hearing aid were all left behind.
Thieves have stolen the lead weights from lifts as a block of flats in Poole. It happened on 2 separate occasions at Nelson Court on Lagland Street. CCTV has now been installed.
Well, you're watching ITV News here in the Meridian region. Stand by for the weather from Helen Plint this evening. But coming up as well, we'll go behind the scenes of Emmerdale ahead of tonight's special episode exploring the difficulties of living with dementia.
Well, for more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or any news, you can call us, the number 0808 1010 095, or get in touch via Facebook, or if you prefer it, you can always send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
Now, it's been revealed as the biggest threat to our environment, the intentional dumping of waste.
The head of the Environment Agency has described it as the new narcotics, with thousands of illegal sites being found every year, making huge profits for the criminals involved.
Last summer, Tom McCabe from Worthing was jailed for 12 months for dumping well over 1,000 tonnes of waste wood in this field in Uckfield. McCabe was caught at Heathrow Airport at the departure gate as he was trying to flee the country.
But criminal gangs are also using derelict factories to dump thousands of tonnes of waste. They're paid to dispose of it properly, but instead they rent a building, dump the waste, then they vanish. Here's Mark Goff.
In an old disused factory, which was once a hive of activity with hundreds of workers, the criminal gangs have moved in. And they've left the evidence of their rotten trade behind. Thousands upon thousands of bales of rubbish, each one more than a cubic metre. The gangs were paid to collect this waste and take it to landfill. Instead, they conned their way into this old factory, and over a few days, lorry after lorry came and went, and gangs of forklift truck drivers unloaded their filthy cargo. It's rotten, smelly, each bale weighing about a tonne, and there are thousands of them, stacked floor to ceiling. The Environment Agency has asked us not to disclose exactly where this is, because it's still part of a live investigation. And what they found is this: 5,000 bales of household waste which a gang has dumped here illegally. And it goes back right to the end of the factory there for many, many metres. And what the Environment Agency thinks happened here is that the gang was disturbed, and they fully intended to fill the whole of this factory with bales of waste. They don't know where it's come from, but it's made up of the rubbish you and I throw away. The day-to-day refuse we think is being disposed of legally. It should go to landfill, but that costs money in transporting it there, but also in taxes. It costs about £90 per tonne in tax to dispose of this kind of waste. Now, criminal gangs are involved, setting up rogue firms promising to dispose of the rubbish and being paid to do so, but instead dumping it wherever they can. This is how the scam works. A company or a council has tons of baled waste it needs to get rid of. The rogue waste firm offers to take it away for a fee, say £20,000, and dispose of it legally. But instead of taking it to landfill and paying the right charges and the right taxes to the government, which could run to thousands of pounds, they find a derelict factory or warehouse, offer the owner perhaps £5,000 in cash to rent it for 6 months, fill it up with the rubbish, and disappear, pocketing £15,000 profit. Once the gangs have got into the building, they'll work quickly, ferrying the waste with lorries and forklift trucks. It's a method of operating the Environment Agency's investigators have seen time and time again.
After you've given permission for the waste to be stored on your site, very quickly you'll get a very large quantity of waste coming on site. So you Arctic trucks, forklift trucks to manage it off, they'll drop it down, they'll stack it quite neatly. Because they want to make it look like a legitimate business, so they'll stack it neatly, it'll look nice and legit. They'll say, yeah, we'll be back to collect this in a few months, and within 3 or 4 days, you know, you can have a considerable number of bales on the site, or over a period of weeks, and then they'll just disappear.
Once the waste has been dumped and the gang have fled, it's the landowner who becomes responsible for clearing it up. even though they had no part in the scam.
To dispose of waste or get the waste dealt with, you need to go through the proper procedures. You need to have a permit from the Environment Agency. That costs money. You need to have the right equipment and facilities to handle the waste, and again that costs money. So the way that they're making money is by avoiding those costs, and they're not dealing with the waste appropriately. So they're just putting it on land and leaving it there for someone else to pick up the bill, and it's the landowner that will pick up the bill, unfortunately.
It's thought the clean-up cost for this will be about £500,000. Mark Goff, ITV News.
Incredible, isn't it? Now the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. With all the details, here's Mary Nightingale.
The latest on the Berlin lorry attack. German police arrest one man and search for another, warning he could pose a serious threat. But visiting the scene, Angela Merkel says the country must not be paralysed by terror. Here, the Queen's to step down as patron of 25 key organisations. And when Michelle Obama met Oprah, the First Lady's take on America's future. Do join James Mates and me for that and more at 6:30.
We will indeed, Mary. Thank you very much indeed. Now, with an ageing population, so many families are now experiencing what it's like to have a loved one with dementia. Sadly, something I can relate to. And that's why this evening, ITV's Emmerdale has a very special episode.
Yes, for several weeks, viewers have witnessed the demise of Ashley Thomas, and tonight we'll see how difficult life can be for the person living with the condition.
In Hampshire, almost 20,000 people have been diagnosed with dementia. In West Sussex, more than 14,000. And in Oxfordshire, 8,500.
And by 2025, the number is expected to rise to over 1 million people.
Well, demand for hospital care has, of course, increased. But in Berkshire, one charity has unveiled a new £9 million care home in Winnersh, hoping to provide a new approach to dementia care. With the details of tonight's special edition of Emmerdale, here's Sally Simpson.
It's a condition affecting an estimated 850,000 people in the UK alone. And while Ashley Thomas's struggle is Emmerdale fiction, his experience of dementia is rooted in fact. The soap's gone to great lengths to make this current storyline truly authentic. Its extensive research reflected in the heartbreaking demise of a much-loved character.
Do a bit of Daisy.
Told entirely from Ashley's point of view, this special episode uses unique filming techniques to portray the world in which he is now living.
It's something that's very difficult to portray on television, which is why I think sometimes programmes might shy away from dealing with it. But we took it as a challenge to try and represent the experience of somebody living with dementia and, as importantly, their families and their loved ones and how they deal with somebody living with dementia, and to try and do that as accurately as possible. Things that he might normally recognise, he doesn't, and simple things like money, for example. There's a scene in the episode where he struggles to pay for something because the coins, when he looks at them, just don't look like any recognisable item. And this was something that came directly from our research, that simple day-to-day tasks become onerous and huge and confusing and complicated.
We've kind of shown, you know, that it is a love story. You know, Laurel and Ashley, they're in love. They got married just over a year and a half ago, and this has come into their life, and it's all about the dilemmas that she's faced with. You know, as he deteriorates, her accepting that he is going to get worse and worse, and she's going to have to let go. She's going to have to come to terms with the fact that she can't cope anymore.
It's the biggest health concern the country's got. And so, yes, we're duty-bound to get it right. And I think as well that with a show like ours, from some sections, there's an expectation that we might trivialise a story like this. And we're absolutely adamant that we're not going to do that. Because people would be quite rightly furious with us if we did it. But the touching thing so far is that so many people have come up to me and say, your team are getting this absolutely right.
Sally Simpson, ITV News.
A very moving episode here on ITV at 7 o'clock this evening.
Now, if you haven't done your Christmas shopping by now, you are running out of time. The shops are extremely busy, although many of us continue to shop online.
But the big retail centres have been fighting back to try and get shoppers away from their computers and into the stores themselves.
In Southampton, the new Watermark development at West Quay is bringing the crowds back to the city centre with its new restaurants.
While Bracknell is fighting back with its new £240 million shopping centre that will open next year. It's a bit different though, of course, to Christmas of yesteryear. With some memories now, let's join Kevin Ashford.
There was a time when Christmas seemed to be a lot simpler. And so did doing the shopping for it. Like everything else, the choice was, well, pretty black and white. You queued, you got your gift. These days, though, it can be a bit more complicated. Shoppers have options.
I am doing more online, to be honest.
Why's that?
Just it's easier when you're at work all the time. You can sit and do your shopping in the evenings.
We don't really do an awful lot online. We still prefer to come out shopping. Why is that? Well, I can see exactly. What you get. Yeah, try things on if they're not right, feel them. Can't feel them when you're sort of over the internet.
I'm a typical man, really. You know, I go in a shop, I know exactly what I want, and I go and get it, and I come out. You know, I might stop and have a coffee, and then I'll go home.
Well, plenty of money is being spent these days to try to make sure you don't go straight home, or indeed just do all your Christmas shopping online. Retail centres like this one are investing millions to help festive shoppers make a day of it.
But the difference nowadays is that to get them into shopping centres, to get them out onto the high street, you've got to offer something more. It is about retail as a leisure destination. It's about offering something extra to just going to the shops. It's about food and drink, it's about leisure activities, making it the sort of thing they actually can't get from just staring into their computer screens.
So it seems that even though there are bargains to be had online, plenty of us have been prepared to brave the crowds to do our Christmas shopping this year, to the extent that, according to the research, 1 in 7 of us have taken half a day off work just to fit in all that festive retail therapy. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
Now here's some nice news for you, and Christmas has come early for 2 critically endangered orangutans.
Yes, they've been returned to freedom in the rainforest in Borneo. 8-year-old Johnny and 10-year-old Desi were rescued by the Sussex-based International Animal Rescue in 2012.
They're being kept as pets and have spent most of their lives in cages. The release operation was carried out by the charity, which is based in Uckfield.
Well
Amazing
done to
story.
them. Good luck, Johnny. Good luck, Desi. Good luck, Helen Plint, who's got tonight's weather forecast, hopefully without any festive snow. Here she is. Let's find out.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Hello again. A very good evening to you. Well, after some cheerful winter sunshine today, you may have guessed it, just about in time for Christmas, things are turning increasingly unsettled through the rest of this week. So this means bands of rain will successively move through. It'll be windy for a spell as well. All of this thanks to the next named storm, Storm Barbara, which will skirt west to east across the north of the British Isles through Friday. Now, this shouldn't bring too much in the way of wet weather to us. Yes, we'll catch the tail end of it, but if you are travelling further north for Christmas, there is the chance of some disruption through Friday and into the start of the weekend. That said, behind it, as you can see, a quieter setup for Saturday, but once again for Christmas, well, things could turn that little bit more changeable. Back to the here and now though, and this evening, well, there will be clear skies overhead for a time, so a little chilly at first, but fairly quickly by the early hours of the morning, cloud packing in from the west. This will be thick enough at times to bring the odd drizzly spot of rain as well. Now, these will be fairly fleeting and patchy, so not causing too much in the way of havoc by first thing tomorrow morning, but certainly a niggle factor. And the breeze really picking up, so turning pretty gusty by first thing, gusting up to 25, maybe 30 miles an hour on those exposed southern coastal shores. Now, as we head through the day, as I say, a little disappointing at first, more dull, grey and damp than anything else. But there will then be a drier slice towards the middle of the day, however, not to last. Wet weather once again tracking in from the west throughout the afternoon. This could well be heavy at times. The breeze will gradually die down though, and temperatures a nudge higher than today, 10 or 11 degrees, but still fairly disappointing throughout the afternoon. Bye for now.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Now look at what's on tomorrow's programme as we head to the home of Father Christmas. With all the details, here's Lauren Hall.
We've joined a group of children here in Lapland, the home of Father Christmas.
The special trip's been organised by a charity which grants wishes to children with life-threatening illnesses. We join them in this winter wonderland, where they get to have lots of fun in the snow, going sledging and even enjoying some proper sleigh rides. But it doesn't end there. This trip wouldn't be complete without meeting the man himself. It's all coming up tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
We shall look forward to that.
We certainly will. Now, in just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale and James Mates.
I shall have our late news. Do try and join me if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much, as always, for watching. See you same time tomorrow or a bit later this evening. Bye-bye.
Good night.